Experience is the cruelest teacher. It gives the test before it gives the lesson. This quote serves as an introduction to the entire book, What I Learned Losing $1,000,000. Here, Jim Paul recounts not only his journey from a poor boy in Kentucky to a board member at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, but also his catastrophic fall, losing over $1,000,000 and a seemingly solid career in just 75 days. Yet, this is not a get-rich-quick guide with ready-made formulas. It is an internal investigation into why we lose, how the personalization of success leads people to arrogance, and from there, paves the way for collapse. These pages do not dwell on presenting a myriad of winning strategies, which can often contradict each other, but go straight to the harsh common denominator. There are countless ways to win, but only a few familiar paths to lose everything. Can failure teach us more than success if every victory is diverse, but every failure follows repetitive psychological patterns? Then, perhaps the only sustainable path is not learning how to win, but learning how not to be destroyed. Part 1. A Trader's Recollection. Experience is the worst teacher. It gives the test before it gives the lesson. I made $248,000 in one day. That figure, like a scorching lightning bolt, glued me to my chair in disbelief. $250,000 in just a few hours. I felt like I held power over the entire universe, as if God would call to ask if I agreed to let the sun rise tomorrow. My desk mirrored the arrogance in my head. A brass pillar erected from the floor supported a giant mahogany slab suspended in midair. The shelves behind me also hung without touching the ground. Entering the office, one would only see extensive carpeting, a gleaming brass pillar, and 2 blocks of wood seemingly defying gravity. That was exactly what I believed I was doing, defying the rules. I sat waiting for the market to open, eager for another $50,000 day, believing life couldn't get any better. And indeed, it never did. The market opened in the red and never returned to the previous day's peak. From that day on, I lost $20,000 to $25,000 daily, steadily, like a ritual of self-flagellation. For months, the decline was only occasionally interrupted by a few weak bounces. I started moving my clients out gradually. Most of them kept a small profit. Some accepted minor losses, but not me. I clung to the position, believing this was the big game. KBY and I would make a $10 million score. By mid-October, I was deep underwater. I didn't know exactly how much I had lost. I only saw my account was empty, margin calls swarming. I waited a few days, hoping the market would recover so I wouldn't have to deposit more. It didn't. I borrowed from friends, struggling day by day. The brokerage firm was temporarily lenient. I was a board member on the exchange's governing body, a company leader. They trusted me. But by the first week of November, everything fell apart. Soybean oil plummeted from 36.37 cents a pound to 25 cents. From its August peak, I was down $700,000 to $800,000 and owed friends another $400,000. On November 17th, the company was forced to act. They liquidated all my positions. From October 26th, I had everything. I became penniless on November 17th. But I wasn't ready to give up. Like playing red light, green light in the parking lot as a kid, I wasn't quitting the game. I just needed to find a way out, a way to lose. I understood that I hadn't lost that money just because of wrong analysis. The method might have played a part, but there was something else more dangerous. The psychological distortions after a long winning streak, my ego merged with the trades, turning each transaction into a battle of honor. That was the breeding ground for disaster. Then I remembered my father's words. There are 2 kinds of people, the smart ones who learn from their own mistakes and the wise ones who learn from the mistakes of others. I became very smart after losing $1.5 million, but the price of that intelligence was a shattered career. Every seed was sown early. I got my first job at age 9, caddying at the Ellesmere Golf Club in Kentucky. My parents wanted me to learn the value of money. I was simply happy to keep money, and that was the beginning of a long love affair with money. At the club, I clearly saw how important money was. It opened up possibilities my family had never known. My father earned $4,000 or $5,000 a year. Here, people drove convertible Eldorados, a blonde wife beside them, her sheer scarf fluttering in the wind. I carried clubs for Charlie RK. He wasn't a good player, but he had a lot of money and nice cars. I told myself, I want what Charlie has, I'll do what Charlie does. I didn't know what he did for a living, but he had money, and that was enough. The truth revealed itself cruelly. It doesn't matter what you do, what matters is how much you get paid. I saw it in the caddy shack. Everyone admired Gus. He was older, an expert at tossing coins against the wall like magic. 4 hours of caddying, I got $2. Gus just sat tossing coins. By the end of the day, he had more money than me. No one admired him for his coin-tossing skills, but because he had more nickels. I quickly learned another lesson. At the card table, if you keep losing, maybe someone is cheating. Gus showed me how to spot card manipulation and how to play so I wouldn't be fleeced. I didn't quit blackjack, but from then on, I stopped losing. The club taught me one more thing: know how to befriend the right people. I became Johnny Mayer's personal caddy, the club champion. For the first time, I got to ride in a convertible to Louisville to caddy at the state amateur tournament. I was only 13, but I had stepped out of Ellesmere, seeing a different world open up. From then on, I didn't want to live like Joe Lunchbox, the high school graduate who went to the factory, tightened 4 bolts on the left side of a V8 engine, ate lunch, tightened 4 more bolts, then went home to drink beer, watch TV, and sleep, happy because he didn't know about Eldorados, silk scarves, or gold-plated McGregor clubs. But I knew. And when you know, you understand what you're missing. I wanted more than anything my neighborhood friends had ever dreamed of. I knew to have what the rich had, I needed an education. To get an education, I needed money. From the age of 9, I worked as a caddy at the pro shop, taught golf, tended the driving range, waited tables at restaurants, then at a gas station. In my senior year of high school, I worked 55 hours a week. I also learned to play by the rules at school. I needed a C to pass a subject. I got a C subjects I liked. I got an A every report card read. Not working to full potential. I drove teachers crazy. Yet I was still elected student body president. At 16, I bought a 1953 Mercury for $700 cash. Then I traded it for a 1956 model, lowered, shaved logos, custom V8 engine, Hurst shifter, dark blue paint, pleated leather seats, new carpet. It wasn't a Cadillac, but for me, it was the car that took me to another world. I thought I was becoming the Johnny Mayer of the club. I sold the '56 Chevy for college money. My parents had never been to college, so my acceptance to the University of Kentucky in 1961 was a big deal. State law dictated that any high school graduate in the state had the right to enroll, but their way of filtering students was the first-year English course. Anyone who failed that course was out. I understood it was a game, so I buried my head in books. Eventually, I got a B. A GPA of 2.6 was enough to survive. Having cleared that hurdle, I turned to social life and soon found myself back from the brink of poverty. Everyone around me had more money. Everyone wore Bass-Weejan shoes. I didn't even know what those were. I didn't have nice clothes, no upper-crust friends, not even a decent suit. The $10 my parents sent me each week came from the 10% savings they made me deposit throughout my time working in Ellesmere. I used to be someone important, had a car, a cheerleader girlfriend, was student body president. Here, I was just an anonymous freshman. Half a year passed in hopelessness. Freshman girls noticed upperclassmen, while boys like me just sat around drinking beer. Remembering my high school days, I decided to join a fraternity to change the situation. It was risky because I had no nice clothes or connections, but my roommate, Jim Hersa, and I did something audacious. We called Kappa Sigma directly, asked to speak to President H.S.E. Robinson, and invited ourselves over. We said we were tired of parties at other fraternities and wanted to come get our pledgeship. Strangely, they agreed. We broke the rules without knowing it and still won. But once in the fraternity, we had to endure hazing, shining shoes, cleaning windows, taking out trash, petty chores. One day, I was shining shoes when 2 upperclassmen, Johnny and P, invited me to play gin rummy. Cox looked at me and asked, "Do you know anything about gin?" I pretended to be naive. "I only know that drinking too much gives you a headache the next day." Cox said, "No, it's a card game, but you have to play for money." I said I didn't have any money. They suggested playing cheap, 5 cents a point. I knew that wasn't cheap at all. Actually, I had learned to play cards at age 10 at the club. We played for 17 hours and I won $612, when tuition per semester was only $81. Cox didn't have enough money. He paid $50 up front and owed me the rest. From then on, for the entire year, I didn't have to do chores. If anyone wanted me to do anything, I just deducted it from Cox's debt. I learned another thing: working smarter is better than working harder. I also started to think I was special. I broke the rules but still won. I skipped classes but still got an A in economics because I understood the nature of supply and demand. Philosophy, I dropped because I found it meaningless. I think, therefore I am, wasn't as practical as a dollar in my pocket. Statistics I left with an incomplete. But it was that very statistics course that led me to a turning point. Professor Christian introduced me to Jack Summon, sales manager of a commodity futures brokerage firm. Summon talked about soybeans, Japanese weather, yields, huge profits, or huge losses. I only heard the word money ringing out. When people asked what I wanted to do after graduation, I just said, make a lot of money. For me, it didn't matter what I did, but how much I got paid. And now I had found the path. I graduated late in August 1965. Just then, the Vietnam War escalated. I was classified 1A, meaning directly draftable. I had registered for ROTC, then dropped out, thinking I could rejoin later, but I had actually chosen the hard path. Fortunately, thanks to a federal judge and a congressman in Washington, I was finally accepted into OCS. The Army, for me, was just another game with its own rules. Training courses pushed people into impossible tasks to see who would break first. Those who saw it as the end of the world broke. Those who saw it as just a game got through. I was in the latter group. I became an instructor at Aberdeen. I was awarded Master Instructor when I was just a lieutenant, a title previously only given to captains or higher. Then I was transferred to Korea, skipping to the S3 position for the entire brigade at age 23, a position usually reserved for a lieutenant colonel. I had to handle tasks related to the 8th Army's nuclear weapons. When the USS Pueblo incident occurred in 1968, I knew what it meant to hold a knife by the blade. I was scared but survived. The Army taught me the opposite of the club. Here, responsibility is more important than money. But I knew I wanted to return to a world where money was the measure. Back in the US, I pursued an MBA at Xavier. This time, I was determined to get A's. Economics and marketing were easy, but quantitative methods in business tormented me. The professor said anyone who didn't know calculus would struggle to pass. I called an old classmate from Notre Dame to tutor me. Gritting my teeth and pulling a C, I learned one more thing: there's a place for every person and a person for every place. If you're not good at something, hire someone else. If you are good, play your heart out. After barely passing the quantitative methods class with a C, I knew I would never delve deep into mathematics, but I was moving closer to the path of trading. I actively sought jobs in the stock and commodity industries. I knocked on every brokerage office door in Cincinnati, many names now gone. I stated directly, I can work part-time from 10:00 a.m. to 3:00 p.m., even without pay, as long as after I finish my MBA, I can enter the official training program. Most companies refused, but I arrived at the right time at one office, one of the biggest commodity brokers, who had just lost his assistant. He earned $300,000 to $500,000 in commissions annually in 1968, just from commodities. That was an enormous sum. I was hired immediately, even if it was just as an assistant. My first job was no different from odd jobs, but I was exposed to the real market. I began to listen, observe, absorb, and gradually, I wanted to step out of the background role and place trades myself. The brokerage job not only gave me money, but also opened the door to a world where those who dared to take risks were admired. I saw them on the floor, yelling, placing bets, then walking out as if they had just won a sporting match. That chaos had a strange allure. I wanted to be a part of it. That was also when I realized I had a knack for speaking. I easily connected, easily persuaded. I wasn't good at math, but I was good at conversation and building trust with clients. That was as important as analysis. I started trading for myself. At first, small trades, then growing larger. Each success made me more confident. I began to believe I had a special ability. I could win where others lost. That feeling repeated exactly as when I called Kappa Sigma directly to ask for a pledge pin, or when I won $612 in a night of gin rummy. Then I went further, stepping onto the Chicago Merc floor for the first time. I was overwhelmed by the sight of hundreds of people jostling, yelling, raising hands, waving papers. It was like a chaotic stage, but to me, it was where glory was determined. I started making my first profitable trades. I gradually became a name. I felt like all the lessons from my caddying days, from the army, from the card games in the dorms, all converged, bringing me to this exact place. The more I won, the more I believed I was different. But at the same time, I also gradually changed my lifestyle. More money earned, and I spent it faster. I bought luxuries. Started living the life the 9-year-old caddy boy had once dreamed of when he saw the El Dorado. I remember one moment clearly. I looked around my office in Chicago. The floating brass and mahogany desk, the light reflecting off it made it seem weightless. I felt myself floating like that, detached from the weight of reality. But continuous success not only brought satisfaction, it also sowed in me the illusion that I was special, that general rules didn't apply to me. That very illusion was subtly preparing me for the disaster ahead. There was one thing I didn't realize then. Repeated success doesn't teach you how to win better. It just makes you forget that failure always lurks. After leaving school and my years in the military, I officially stepped into the world of commodities. My initial job in the brokerage office was just an ancillary position, but then it opened up bigger doors. I gradually became an independent broker, trading myself and building my own client base. In the early days, I was like anyone else on the floor, jostling, shouting, hands flailing wildly. But step by step, I began to find a rhythm. A few successful trades solidified my confidence. I earned more money than when I worked in the office, and more importantly, I began to feel like I truly belonged here. The ascent was fast. I built a reputation with clients. They trusted me with their money. At the same time, I also made bigger bets myself. When those trades won, it was like a rush of hot blood. Each big profit made me forget the pain of previous losses.